Good morning and welcome to our thought for the week today. I'm here in the cottage where I've done many of my thoughts for the week before, but I'm not normally in front of this wall. For the observant among you, you will realise that I'm filming the other way around today, and there's no other reason for that other than I couldn't find my tripod. But the reason I couldn't find my tripod is because we've tidied this room, and with the help of Gail and a couple of others, we've cleaned the place. We've borrowed people's washing machines to wash seat covers and all sorts, because for the first time in more than 2 years, this room was full with young people on Sunday night, and it made my heart glad to be in a room with 22 or so young people, and we were singing praises to God. We were having a bit of crack, and we were having fellowship together again in the cottage. It was so lovely. But it did mean I had to clear some of my junk out of the room. And so my tripod is somewhere. I couldn't locate it this morning. So you're propped up on a shelf for today's thought for the week. So if I suddenly go wonky halfway through the video, you'll know why. So good to be back. And yet, it was a bit of a strange night on Sunday night. For anyone who was in the square, you will know how beautiful and poignant and special the service in the square was on Sunday evening, as we reflected and remembered the life of Her Majesty the Queen. And there's been plenty said in the last couple of weeks, and even in the last few days, about her life and how we celebrate it. And yet it was a time of mourning too. And so as youth fellowship, we gathered round a sort of campfire, and we held that minute silence at 8 p.m, as many people around, not just our nation, but around the world did too. And that and the service on Monday as well as the sort of public reaction, got me thinking about how we as Christians have a very different view of death, which is often confusing to the world. I saw some people on Twitter on Monday, during and after the funeral, sort of a bit confused about the way that Christians do things, or why certain readings were used, or how can people be happy about this. I saw a similar reaction a while back. There was somebody in the public eye in Northern Ireland who had died quite suddenly, and a friend and a colleague of theirs had tweeted a verse from Philippians chapter 1, which is the verse I want to reflect on today. The verse that they had tweeted in response to this person's death was verse 21. It says in Philippians 1:21, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." And the person who tweeted this, they knew that the person who had died was a strong Christian person who had a real faith in Jesus and would have believed this verse with all their heart. And they knew that their family were also Christians, and so this would have been a comfort to the Christian family. However, on Twitter, it wasn't received well. As people will know, Twitter is not always the place to go for light and positivity. And so the reaction to this was really quite angry from some people who said, this is of no comfort whatsoever to a family. How can you say that there's anything to gain from this person's death? How can that be of any comfort? People just couldn't get their head around it at all, that you would say for somebody to die is a good thing. And yet for us as Christians, surely it is. The Bible tells us that it is. Paul's letter to the Philippians is expressing not just how he feels, but how we as Christians should view death. And I suppose it is strange, it is weird for people around us who are not Christians to look in and see this is really quite bizarre. We have a lovely service coming up this Sunday, a service of reflection and a time to think about some of the people that we maybe lost over the course of the pandemic, and we maybe couldn't mourn them or reflect on their lives in the way that we're used to because of the COVID restrictions. And if that's how you felt, then maybe coming to the service on Sunday afternoon would be something that you would really appreciate. But again, as I thought about the service on Sunday afternoon, I thought, again, it's a weird sort of a thing that we as Christians, maybe at funerals or at the likes of the service on Sunday, will be not just mourning and sorrowful for the people that we have lost, but if we know that they are Christians, then we celebrate, not just celebrate the life and the memories that we have, but we celebrate that they are now in glory with Christ. And again, to the world, that seems like a crazy thing. Let me just read a few verses around that verse from Philippians chapter 1. Philippians chapter 1, I'll read from verse 20. It says this: "As it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage now, as always, Christ will be honoured in my body, whether by life or by death. For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labour for me. Yet which I shall choose I cannot tell. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account." You see, as Christians, we are torn. We have this tension because we know that the thing that gives us hope in life, when we see the despair of things that are going on, whether it's the cost of living crisis getting us down, the wars around the world going on, or whether there's some personal circumstances that just drag us down, as Christians we have this joy and this hope of something even better to come. And so sometimes we might actually look forward to that, and we might think, I just wish I was in heaven right now because it sounds so good. And so that is a clue as to why sometimes, at times of mourning and sorrow, why sometimes as Christians it's maybe a bit weird for us, but we are joyful too. If we've lost a loved one who we know is a Christian, then we know that they are no longer suffering. They are in heaven with Jesus. They are probably having a party far better than any party we could ever imagine. And so this week, as we've been reflecting on the life of Her Majesty, and as we look forward to our service of reflection on Sunday, and we're in this weird in-between bit where, yes, we're still trying to be sorrowful and mournful for Her Majesty, but we're looking to the future with hope of what our new King may be bringing to our country and to a further afield. I thought it would be good to look to our Heavenly King and see the hope and the joy that He brings, even in the midst of death and destruction. So that's my encouragement for you in what has been an interesting few weeks. And as we look forward to a service where we'll be reflecting on the death and the loss of loved ones, that we as Christians, if we know that we are Christians, or those who we've lost are Christians, then they'll be in heaven having the best time. And that for us, if we're living our lives, we shouldn't fear death, because Jesus has conquered death, and we know that once earthly death comes to us, we will be spending eternity in a far better place than we can ever imagine. I hope that thought has blessed you this morning. God bless.